Welcome back to CBS Mornings, where for the first time we're getting a U.S. service member's eyewitness account of the deadly terrorist attack at Kabul's airport that killed 13 American troops during the chaotic evacuation there. It was the deadliest day in more than a decade for the American military in Afghanistan. Now only on CBS Mornings, you're about to hear from one of the Marines who was wounded by those suicide blasts. He spoke with our David Martin, who's at the Pentagon for us this morning. David, good morning. What are we learning?
Well, good morning. The Marines had warning that an attack was coming, even had a physical description of the suspected bomber. But in that crush of humanity outside the airport, they were unable to spot him.
Major Ben Sutphin was there when the bomb went off, right there.
How far away were you?
I was about 15 feet.
Yet he is somehow alive and able to give the first eyewitness account of the blast.
We'd brought a truck with a loudspeaker down to try to disperse the crowd. I was standing right by that truck when the bomb went off.
The truck shielded you?
I'd say so.
After the suicide bomber detonated his vest, gunmen opened fire from a nearby roof. Sutphin described the actions of a Marine corporal.
He's blown off his feet and still has his wits about him, shot through the shoulder, immediately recovers his weapon and puts the opposing gunman down.
If they had just opened fire without you firing back, what would have happened?
Without a doubt, many more Marine and civilian lives would have been lost.
15 Marines were wounded, among them Corporal Kelsey Lanehart. Her parents allowed us to show these pictures of her recovering at Walter Reed.
Another corporal with substantial blast injuries to his lungs and internal organs still has enough grit and courage at risk of his own life to drag another injured Marine out of harm's way.
This is where it happened, about 300 yards from Abbey Gate, one of the main entrances to the airport. The Marines had set up a corridor between Abbey Gate and the Barron Hotel, where British troops were located. On the day of the attack, Abbey Gate was the only way into the airport.
The other two gates had been closed for a while. So what was happening is everyone, it looked like the city converging on Abbey Gate.
Despite intelligence warnings of an imminent attack by a terrorist group known as ISIS-K, Abbey Gate stayed open so British troops at the hotel could return to the airport.
The day of the attack, we had gotten probably the most direct indications of a threat at the Abbey Gate and an individual to look out for. So we made sure that information was passed to our Marine snipers and to the Marines on location.
How difficult would it be to pick out one person who you have a description of?
I would say next to impossible in crowds of thousands, tightly packed, shoulder to shoulder, chest to chest. I mean, this was a very dense crowd.
Sutphin, who was the operations officer of his battalion, said the Marines took every possible precaution.
Armed aerial surveillance overhead at the time. We had electronic countermeasures for improvised explosive device all along that corridor that would try to eliminate any, electronically triggered device.
But the suicide bomber was not detected, and the carnage was horrific. An estimated 170 Afghan civilians killed. The airport went into mourning as 13 dead Americans were sent home with honors.
I'm sure you've asked yourself this. In retrospect, what could you have done differently?
The mission was evacuating people. We had to keep that road open. There was not a lot we could change about that situation. It was the mission, and we executed it.
It was to have been their last mission. Abbey Gate was scheduled to close, and those Marines were supposed to return to the airport to board planes for the flight out. Gayle?
Boy, David, that's tough to hear. It was a terrible, terrible day. And then to hear from the major that it could have been so much worse. Our thanks to him. Thanks to the American military.
Think of the courage. Think of the courage involved in knowing that there is a likely attack that day, and you still go out and do your job in the line of danger.
Yeah, and when we see words like support our troops, and you have an opportunity to please do. Because not only are they heroes in the moment, but when they come back home, they still live with the memories of that.
Our troops are more than just words, and we see that.